Orbital Station Pinnacle 5 hung in the void like a steel cathedral. All sharp angles and bristling weapon emplacements positioned exactly where civilized space ended and the Orion quarantine zone began. It was the kind of place that screamed, "Turn back now," in 50,000 different languages. And if you didn't listen, well, that was your problem. The station had been here for 800 cycles, give or take, serving as both border checkpoint and military fortress for the Interstellar Union. Nobody got past Pinnacle 5 without permission. Nobody got past Pinnacle 5 without being thoroughly, invasively, humiliatingly inspected. Lieutenant Penny Torrance stood in the observation deck, staring out at the stars and contemplating her life choices. 3 months assigned to this glorified toll booth, and she'd learned exactly one thing. The galaxy thought humans were adorable. Not impressive. Not formidable. Adorable. Like puppies that had accidentally learned to operate starships. "Lieutenant!" The voice crackled through her comm unit, high-pitched and clicking. "We have incoming civilian transport requesting emergency docking. Human vessel." Of course it was human. Penny sighed and tapped her comm. "Acknowledged. What's the situation?" "Engine failure, they claim. Single adult. 2 juveniles aboard." "2 kids?" Penny frowned. "Out here? Route them to Bay 12 and initiate standard quarantine protocols." "Military Governor Uxmoth has already been notified. He's concerned." Concerned. That was diplomatic speak for completely losing his compound mind. Uxmoth was Kixlani, an insectoid species that looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a chess grandmaster and then given the result severe anxiety. He viewed humanity the way a nervous parent views a toddler near a swimming pool. Cute, unpredictable, and probably about to cause a disaster. Penny made her way to Bay 12, taking the lift down through the station's gleaming corridors. The walls hummed with power. Sensors, defensive systems, all the standard paranoia that came with being the Union's first line of defense against whatever horrors lurked in the quarantine zones. She'd seen the briefings. She knew what was out there in the dark. Things that made grown Colothi warriors whimper in their sleep. The docking bay was already swarming with activity when she arrived. And by activity, she meant a small army. Security Chief Imlox stood at the center of it all, built like a tank that had been taught to walk upright and given delusions of tactical genius. He was Colothi, one of the warrior races that made up the Union's military backbone, all muscle and honor-bound stupidity. Right now, he was barking orders at a full tactical squad. 20 guards, full combat armor, weapons charged and ready. "Are you serious right now?" Penny called out, approaching him. "It's a civilian transport, with kids." Imlox turned his massive head toward her, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "Protocol is protocol, Lieutenant. Unknown human vessel, unscheduled arrival. Engine failure that conveniently occurs exactly at our position." He crossed his primary arms. "I've read the reports about your species, your chaos wrapped in diplomatic smiles." "That's—" Penny started, then stopped, because, honestly, he wasn't entirely wrong. "Look, it's probably just a family who took a wrong turn. Humans do that. We're not great at navigation. Which is precisely why you're still probationary members of the Union." Governor Uxmoth had arrived, his chitinous form clicking across the deck plating. His mandibles twitched in what Penny had learned to recognize as disapproval. Everything made him disapprove. 3 cycles since contact, and you've already filed more incident reports than the previous 10 species combined. "We're enthusiastic learners," Penny offered. Uxmoth's antennae flattened. Not a good sign. The docking clamps engaged with a heavy thunk that reverberated through the deck. Bay 12's massive doors had sealed, atmosphere was equalizing, and every weapon in the room was now pointed at the small, battered transport ship that sat in the docking cradle like a metal potato. The vessel was, well, unremarkable, would be generous. It looked like something someone had built in their backyard, using spare parts and optimism. The name painted on the hull read Mudlark in faded letters. "All units, ready positions," Imlocks commanded. His troops formed a textbook defensive perimeter around the ship's airlock. Weapons raised. Targeting systems active. 20 of the Union's finest warriors prepared to absolutely murder a family having car trouble. Penny felt a headache building behind her eyes. The airlock hissed. Unsealed. The ramp descended with a hydraulic whine, and out walked the most ordinary-looking human woman Penny had ever seen. She was maybe mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing cargo pants, a weathered jacket that had seen better decades, and hiking boots that were held together mostly by duct tape and stubbornness. She carried a small backpack over one shoulder. No weapons visible. No armor. No anything, really, except an expression of mild inconvenience, like someone who'd just remembered they forgot to turn off the stove at home. Behind her came two children. The older one, maybe 8 years old, had the same dark hair and carried what looked suspiciously like a very serious backpack. The younger one, 6 or so, clutched a stuffed animal that might have once been a bear, but had been loved into abstract art. "Greetings," Uxmoth said, his translator rendering his clicks into formal Union standard. "You have violated approach protocols, and—" The woman walked past him. Just walked past him. Like the military governor of Pinnacle 5, supreme commander of this sector, personal friend of the Union High Council, didn't exist. She walked past the governor, past the guard line, past 20 raised, weapons and enough firepower to level a city block, like she was taking a casual stroll through a park. The kids followed. And here's where it got weird. The older child stopped in front of the first guard in the perimeter, looked him up and down, then reached out and adjusted the guard's weapon grip. "Your hold is wrong," the kid said matter-of-factly. Kit, Penny would learn later. The child's name was Kit. "You're putting pressure on the forward grip instead of using it for stability. In sustained fire, your accuracy will drift right by approximately 6 degrees. Also, your posture is terrible." The guard, a Kolathi veteran with 30 years of combat experience, stared down at this human child who barely came up to his knee armor. His weapon grip was not wrong. His weapon grip was regulation. His weapon grip was muscle memory from 10,000 hours of training. He adjusted his grip. The younger child had moved to the next guard, examining the alien's armor plating with the intensity of a quality control inspector who'd found a defect. "This maintenance is substandard," the little one announced. "Tegan," Penny would learn. "When was your last equipment check? There's microfracturing along this seam, and your power coupling is loose. You're running at maybe 85% efficiency. That's embarrassing." The guard looked at Imlocks. Imlocks looked at his equipment diagnostic readout. His primary eye widened. 84.6% efficiency. "Ma'am," Penny called out, because someone had to say something, and apparently that someone was her. "Ma'am, you need to stop and submit to security protocols." The woman turned, finally acknowledging that other people existed in the universe. She had remarkably ordinary features, the kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting. Except for her eyes. Her eyes were the problem. They were calm. Too calm. The calm of someone who'd seen things that would make combat veterans weep and had filed them under moderately interesting. "Oh, sorry," the woman said, and she sounded genuinely apologetic. "Where's the cafeteria? The kids are hungry, and we've been eating ration bars for 3 days. Please tell me you have actual food here." "The cafeteria?" Penny repeated, because her brain had apparently decided to take a vacation. "Yes, food, nutrition, preferably something that isn't beige." The woman smiled. It was a nice smile, a friendly smile, a smile that made every combat instinct in the room start screaming. Imlox found his voice, which took effort, because his voice had temporarily fled to somewhere safer, like inside a black hole. "You will stop. You will identify yourself. You will comply with security procedures, or you will be detained by force." "Oh." The woman considered this. "No, I don't think so. But thank you for the offer." She turned back toward the exit corridor. "Detain her!" Uxmoth shrieked, which was really the only appropriate word for the sound he made. 6 guards moved. In, weapons lowered but ready, intending to physically restrain this completely ordinary human woman and her completely ordinary children. They got within 3 meters. Then the universe hiccuped. The first guard's weapon made a sound like a cat being strangled, then went completely dead. The second guard's armor servos locked up mid-step, freezing him in place like a very aggressive statue. The third guard's communication system started emitting feedback at a frequency that made every translator in the bay scream in electronic agony. The fourth guard's targeting computer began displaying what appeared to be recipe recommendations. The fifth guard's weapon didn't malfunction. It just fell apart. Not violently. Just sort of came apart in his hands like furniture from a store that shall not be named. The sixth guard, the veteran who'd had his grip corrected, suddenly began speaking. But not in Union Standard. Not in Colothy. In ancient Colothy. Ceremonial ancient Colothy. He was reciting what Penny's translator identified as traditional burial poetry from the Third Moon campaigns. He looked mortified. The woman hadn't even turned around. She was now discussing something with Kit about vector calculations and probability matrices in the tone of someone helping with homework. Penny's tactical training, all 3 years of it, kicked in. She stepped forward, hands raised, using her least threatening voice. "Ma'am, I'm Lieutenant Penny, Human Liaison Officer. Maybe we can talk? Before anyone else's equipment develops sentience and rebels?" The woman looked at her, really looked at her. And for just a moment, Penny saw something flicker across that ordinary face. Recognition, maybe. Or evaluation. The look a predator gives another predator when deciding whether to fight or walk away. Then the woman smiled again, and the moment passed. "Lieutenant, finally, someone sensible. Yes, let's talk. Preferably over actual food. Do you have coffee? Please say you have coffee." We have coffee," Penny managed. "Outstanding. Kids, come on. The nice lieutenant is going to show us the cafeteria." Kit waved at the frozen guards. "You should really run a full diagnostic on your equipment. This is clearly a systemic maintenance issue, not individual negligence." Tegan patted the one guard's leg armor sympathetically. "It's okay. Everyone has bad days." The woman walked toward the exit. The children followed. And after a moment of complete, total, universe-breaking confusion, Penny followed too. Behind them, Governor Uxmoth stood in the middle of his docking bay, surrounded by his elite tactical squad, at least half of which was now experiencing technical difficulties that would require engineering teams and possibly therapy to resolve. "What?" he said slowly. "Just happened?" Imlox was checking his own weapon, his armor, his everything, all functioning normally. He looked at his troops, then at the retreating humans, then back at Uxmoth. "I believe, Governor," he said carefully, "we just encountered a problem." "Obviously. I can see the problem. There are 20 guards having a collective equipment failure." "No, sir." Imlox watched the small human family disappear around the corner, the woman chatting pleasantly with Lieutenant Penny like they were old friends discussing weather. "I believe the problem is that we have no idea what just happened. And I suspect that woman knows we have no idea. And I strongly suspect she finds that amusing." Uxmoth's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Kixlani equivalent of nervous laughter. "She's one unarmed civilian with 2 juveniles. What possible threat could—" His comm unit chimed. "Emergency priority. From operations. Governor, this is Operations Officer Lixpun. Sir, we have a situation. Those 2 human juveniles that just arrived, they're in the Strategic Operations Center." "What? How did they— They were just in the—" "Sir, they're playing with the holographic star charts. We tried to remove them, but—" "Governor, they're solving navigation equations. Problems that have been open for months. They're doing it while playing what appears to be a game involving that stuffed animal." Uxmoth looked at Imlox. Imlox looked at Uxmoth. "Get me Lieutenant Penny," the governor said quietly, "and someone find out who that woman is. Right now." In the cafeteria, Violet, that was her name, she'd finally offered it, was eating what could generously be called a sandwich, while explaining to Penny that yes, she had proper docking clearance, and no, she couldn't have filed it in advance, because that would have spoiled the surprise. Penny was very carefully not asking what surprise. She was also very carefully ignoring the fact that every security camera that tried to focus on Violet's face seemed to develop a peculiar glitch that rendered her features slightly blurry. Not obviously so, just enough that later, when reviewing the footage, no one would be able to quite describe what she looked like. "So," Penny said, pulling up her datapad, trying to sound professional and not at all like someone whose entire worldview had just been gently pushed off a cliff. "Your ship registration says you're from Earth. Designation, She squinted at the screen. "Protected Observation World? That's not right. Earth's status was changed to probationary member 3 cycles ago." Violet took a sip of coffee. Actual coffee, which the station stocked because humans had insisted it was a mandatory life support requirement. "Is that what it says? Huh. Paperwork errors. You know how it is." "This isn't a paperwork error. This registration predates the Union's first contact with Earth." "Does it? Well, time is funny out here in space, all that relativity and whatnot." "Ma'am, I'm trying very hard to be helpful here, but you need to give me something, anything, because right now I have a very angry governor, a very confused security chief, and 20 guards who are going to need to file incident reports that no one will believe." Violet set down her coffee and looked at Penny with those 2 calm eyes. "Lieutenant, Penny, you seem like good people, smart, observant. So I'm going to be straight with you. The less you know right now, the better your day is going to be. We'll be gone in a few hours. Engine's already fixed. It was never really broken. And then, this will all just be one of those weird stories you tell at parties." "Your quiet service," Penny said. The cafeteria got very quiet. Violet's expression didn't change, not even a flicker. But the temperature in the cafeteria seemed to drop about 5 degrees, and Penny's tactical training started screaming at her to run. Just run. Run very far and very fast, and maybe change her name and become a moisture farmer on some backwater planet, where nothing interesting ever happened. Instead, she stayed sitting. "I'm sorry," Violet said pleasantly. "I don't know what that is." "Yes, you do. Earth's been part of the Union for 3 cycles. But humans have been appearing in weird places doing weird things for a lot longer than that. There are reports, rumors. Someone on the Union Intelligence Oversight Committee got drunk at a conference and started rambling about Terran ghosts. They called them the Quiet Service. Humans who were already out here before first contact. Sounds like conspiracy nonsense to me. Your ship registration is 400 cycles old. Bureaucratic error. Your kids just solved navigation problems that stumped our operations team for months. They're very bright children. We encourage education. You walked through a military security perimeter like it was made of smoke. Your guards need better training. The doors burst open. Governor Uxmoth stormed in, flanked by Imlocs and a dozen fresh guards who looked significantly more nervous than the previous batch. These ones had their weapons holstered, but hands ready. They'd learned something from watching the docking bay recordings. "You!" Uxmoth pointed at Violet with one of his smaller manipulator arms. "You will submit to detainment immediately for violation of security protocols, unauthorized access to classified systems, and suspicion of espionage." Violet took another sip of coffee. "No, thank you. This is not a request." "Then you're wording your threats poorly. Generally, demands sound more threatening when phrased as imperatives. You will comply works better than you will submit. See the difference? One implies consequences. The other just sounds whiny." Uxmoth's mandibles clattered so rapidly they sounded like applause. "Imlocs, restrain her, now!" The security chief hesitated. Penny could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. The docking bay footage had been reviewed. Extensively. Frame by frame. No one could explain what happened to his troops. Equipment didn't just malfunction simultaneously across multiple, independent systems without cause. "Governor," Imloc said carefully, "perhaps we should—" "Now!" 6 guards moved in. Slowly. Weapons still holstered. Violet sighed and set down her coffee cup. She looked genuinely disappointed, like a teacher watching students make the same mistake twice. "You really want to try this? Okay. But when this goes badly, remember you insisted." They got within 2 meters this time. The lights in the cafeteria flickered. Just for a moment. When they stabilized, every guard who'd approached was standing perfectly still, looking down at their hands in confusion. Their weapons were still holstered. Their armor was functioning. Nothing had malfunctioned. But they couldn't remember why they'd moved forward. Couldn't remember what they'd been ordered to do. The memory was just gone. Like trying to remember a dream 5 seconds after waking. One guard looked at Imlocs. "Sir? Did you give an order?" Penny felt her blood turn to ice water. Memory alteration. That wasn't equipment malfunction. That was something else entirely. "What are you?" Penny whispered. "Tired," Violet said, "and under-caffeinated. Lieutenant, I'm going to need to speak with someone from Union Central Archives. Specifically, someone with clearance level Omega, or higher. Can you arrange that?" What? "No. Nobody has Omega clearance. That's theoretical. That's for planet-killer threats and—" Penny stopped. Looked at Violet. At this ordinary woman in hiking boots. "Oh. Oh, no. Oh, yes. Your union made a catastrophic error 3 cycles ago, and now we're all going to have to deal with the consequences. So, archives, Omega clearance, please." Uxmoth was shaking now, which for a Kixlani meant his entire exoskeleton rattled like wind chimes in a hurricane. "What did you do to my guards?" "Absolutely nothing. They're fine, healthy. They'll live long, productive lives. They just won't remember the last 30 seconds. It's kinder this way, trust me. You're threatening a union installation. Governor, if I was threatening you, you'd know. This is me being polite. This is me following protocols that your species agreed to before your great-grandparents hatched. Earth isn't what you think it is. Humans aren't what you think we are. And you really, really shouldn't have changed our planetary status without asking the people who've been keeping everyone safe. Penny pulled out her datapad with shaking hands and sent the archive request. The response came back in seconds. Inquiry rejected. Clearance insufficient. Contact Union High Command directly. She showed Violet the screen. Violet smiled. There we go. Now they know I'm here. This should get interesting. The station's alarm klaxons didn't sound. Nothing exploded. No weapons discharged. But every senior officer's comm unit lit up simultaneously with the same message, rendered in the flat, emotionless tone of Union Central Command. Secure all civilians in Bay 12 incident. Maintain station. Lockdown. Await further instructions. Penny had been a liaison officer long enough to know that when Central Command said, await further instructions, what they really meant was, we're panicking and have no idea what to do, so please stall. Governor Uxmoth was reading the same message, his antennae wilting in what Penny recognized as existential dread. They've classified this as a Level 5 diplomatic incident. Do you know what the last Level 5 incident was? The Kolathi-Krell War. The one that killed 6 billion sentients. I remember, Imlox rumbled. I was there. Violet was now on her second cup of coffee, looking unbothered by the growing chaos around her. You all really need to relax. Nobody's going to die today. Probably. Probably. Penny's voice went up an octave. Well, I can't control what Central Command does. If they send a strike team, things might get messy. But that would be their choice, not mine. She glanced at her wrist, which notably didn't have a chronometer. The kids should be done with operations by now. They get bored easily. As if summoned, Kit and Tegan appeared in the cafeteria doorway, followed by a very distressed-looking operations officer, Lix Pun. He was a Mentakian, which meant he had 3 brains. One for tactical thinking, one for spatial reasoning, one for logistics. Right now, all 3 appeared to be having simultaneous breakdowns. Governor, Lixapun said weakly, these juveniles just rewrote our navigation protocols for the entire sector. They found 6 stable wormhole junctions we didn't know existed. They corrected our star charts for gravitational drift we haven't even measured yet, and they did it in 18 minutes, while playing a game with a stuffed animal. Tegan held up the stuffed bear proudly. Mr. Patches helped. He's very good at probability matrices. It's true, Kit added seriously. Mr. Patches has an intuitive grasp of quantum mechanics. Lixpun looked at Uxmoth with all 3 of his primary eyes. Sir, I ran their calculations, twice. They're perfect, not approximately correct, not close enough for practical use. Perfect. They accounted for variables we don't even have sensors to detect yet. Penny's datapad chimed. She glanced at it, then froze. Someone had just remotely accessed her terminal. Someone with clearance she didn't know existed. Files were downloading. Restricted files. Classified files. Files that should have required authorization from the Union High Council itself. The header read, Observation Project. Terra. Historical Archive. She looked at Violet, who smiled innocently. I may have expedited your archive request. You're welcome. This is illegal. This is so illegal that I don't think we have laws for how illegal this is. Read it anyway. You're going to want to know what's coming. Penny hesitated, then opened the file. Started reading. Felt her entire understanding of reality begin to crumble like a sand castle at high tide. Earth. Designation: Protected Observation World. Status: Quarantine Level Omega. High Evolutionary Volatility. First observation: 12,683 cycles ago. First contact protocols denied by unanimous council vote. Reasoning: species demonstrates extreme adaptive capability, unprecedented tool use innovation, and alarming propensity for both cooperation and violence. Recommended observation period: indefinite. The file went on and on. 12,000 cycles of observation reports. Humanity hadn't been discovered 3 cycles ago. Humanity had been watched for over 12,000 cycles. Studied. Monitored. Quarantined like a virus that might or might not be contagious. There were incident reports. Hundreds of them. Humans appearing in places they shouldn't be. Always small groups. Always operating in the margins. Sometimes helping. Sometimes hindering. Always disappearing before official contact could be made. The Terran Quiet Service. It was real. It was old. And according to these files, it had been protecting Earth from external threats for centuries while simultaneously keeping Earth from finding out that external threats existed. "We weren't ready," Penny whispered, still reading. "You were keeping us quarantined because we weren't ready for contact." "Yes and no," Violet said. She'd moved to stand beside Penny, reading over her shoulder. "The Union thought you weren't ready. They thought humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too likely to cause problems. So they decided to leave Earth alone until you either evolved into something safer or destroyed yourselves. Win-win for them. But you, the Quiet Service, you've been out here anyway. Someone had to be. The galaxy is bigger than the Union, Lieutenant. There are things out there in the dark that would have noticed Earth eventually, quarantine or not. We've been handling those situations, quietly." Uxmoth had recovered enough to approach, reading the files over Penny's other shoulder. His mandibles clicked slowly, processing. The Council knew. The entire Council knew humanity was quarantined, and they still voted to grant you probationary membership. "They panicked," Violet explained, settling back into her chair. "Your long-range scouts detected human colony ships, real ones from Earth, heading out into the galaxy. Slow generation ships, but they were coming. The Union realized they couldn't maintain the quarantine anymore. So instead of admitting they'd been watching humanity for millennia like creepy neighbors, they staged a first contact and granted probationary status. And invalidated every protection treaty in the process," Imalox said quietly. He'd been reading too, and his warrior's mind had immediately grasped the strategic implications. Earth is now legally open to colonization, to exploitation, to conquest. Exactly. By granting humanity membership, even probationary, the Union opened Earth up to every predator species in the galaxy. And there are a lot of predators. Security Chief. Some of them have been waiting a very, very long time for access to a fresh world full of resources and 7 billion potential slaves. The cafeteria had gone deathly quiet. Even the environmental systems seemed to hush. Kit climbed into a chair, swinging small legs. "That's why we're here. Mom has to explain to the Union that they messed up, and that humans aren't going to just roll over and die because some bureaucrats made a stupid decision." "Language," Violet said automatically. "Sorry, Mom. Poorly informed decision." Tegan was examining the readout on Penny's datapad with interest. "Are those the invasion timelines? Can I see?" Small fingers scrolled through pages of data. "Oh, Look, the Coombe Collective is planning to move on Earth in 6 months. That's the same group that sterilized the Plaxian homeworld, right? Right, Violet confirmed, along with 8 other species who've been waiting for the chance. The moment Earth's quarantine was lifted, every hostile power in this sector started preparing fleets. Penny felt sick. Earth doesn't know. We don't have defenses. We don't have military fleets that could stand against— Oh God, we're completely exposed. Not completely, Violet said. You have us. The Quiet Service has been preparing for this possibility for a long time. We've identified every threat. We've infiltrated their command structures. We've sabotaged invasion plans, redirected fleets, and occasionally convinced aggressive species that attacking Earth would be a really, really bad idea. How? Uxmoth demanded. You're civilians, unarmed. We're human, Violet interrupted. Governor, your species evolved on a world with normal predators, reasonable threats. You developed technology and civilization in a relatively safe environment. Humans? We evolved on a death world. We evolved alongside megafauna that hunted us for sport. We developed persistence hunting. We learned to chase prey until it literally died of exhaustion. We mastered fire, tools, complex language, all while being hunted by animals that could kill us with a casual swipe. She leaned forward. Every other species in this union treats war as a formal process. Rules of engagement, honor codes, proportional response. Humans learned to fight for survival before we learned to read. We learned to cooperate in hostile environments before we learned agriculture. You want to know what makes us dangerous? It's not that we're aggressive. It's that we're creative. We improvise. We adapt. We survive. Imalox's 4 eyes narrowed. These are bold claims from one unarmed female. Are they? Your guards in the docking bay would disagree. Well, they would if they could remember what happened. The point is, Governor, you invited humanity into the Union. You can't uninvite us. So now you have a choice. Work with us as equals, or explain to the galactic community how the mighty interstellar union lost control of its newest members because you didn't do your homework. Penny's comm chimed again. This time it was a direct message from Union High Command. Lieutenant Torrance, maintain communication with human civilians. Do not, repeat, do not take hostile action. We are reviewing historical files and will advise. She showed the message to Uxmoth. The governor slumped in his chair, which was impressive given his rigid exoskeleton. They're reviewing the files. They're confirming everything she's saying. Probably, Violet agreed. Your high command has access to the same archives I just showed you. They're currently having a very unpleasant conversation about how to handle this situation without causing a diplomatic catastrophe, or worse, confirming to everyone that they've been maintaining an illegal observation quarantine for 12,000 cycles. What do you want? Penny asked. Why are you really here? You could have sent a message. You could have contacted High Command directly. Why bring your kids to a military station and cause this entire incident? Violet's expression softened slightly, and for just a moment, Penny saw something almost sad in those 2 calm eyes. Because messages can be ignored, Lieutenant. Bureaucrats can file reports and forget about them. But walking through a guard line, demonstrating what a human family can do when we're not even trying, that's memorable. That's the kind of thing that gets attention. That's the kind of thing that makes people realize humanity isn't a problem to be managed. We're a reality to be reckoned with. Kit had found a data terminal and was absently scrolling through station security protocols, making small, disapproving noises. Your firewall architecture is 60 years out of date. I could breach this with a standard interface tool. Please don't, Penny said weakly. I won't. Mom says hacking is rude unless it's important. Tegan had climbed into Uxmoth's lap, which should have been terrifying, but somehow wasn't. The governor sat frozen, unsure what to do, while the 6-year-old patted his manipulator arm sympathetically. It's okay. Growing up is hard. Mom says the Union is still learning. She says everyone makes mistakes when they're young. Young? Uxmoth sputtered. The Union is 40,000 cycles old. Exactly, Violet said. Practically an infant compared to some civilizations out there. You're doing great, Governor, really. You've only nearly caused 3 major wars this cycle. That's improvement. The Union High Command's response arrived exactly 32 minutes later, delivered via encrypted quantum transmission that made every communications officer on Pinnacle 5 simultaneously nervous and impressed. Penny read it 3 times, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic. They didn't. They want proof, she said slowly. High Command is refusing to acknowledge the quiet service exists without definitive demonstration of claimed capabilities. They think, "You're bluffing," Violet laughed. Actually laughed, the sound echoing through the cafeteria like broken glass. Of course they do. Politicians. They're the same across every species. Never believe anything until it punches them in the face. This is outrageous. Uxmoth had recovered some of his dignity, though Tegan was still sitting on his thorax like he was furniture. You claim to be protectors of humanity, yet you refuse to provide evidence of your capabilities? You expect us to simply take your word? No, Violet said, standing. I expect you to test us. That's why I'm here, Governor. You want proof? Fine. Let's give them a demonstration. Imlox stepped forward, and Penny could see the warrior's tactical mind working. What kind of demonstration? Combat simulation. Your choice of scenario. Your choice of parameters. Kit and Tegan versus your best tactical squad. The cafeteria went silent except for the environmental system's low hum. You want to put your children in a combat scenario, Penny said carefully, against trained Kolathi warriors. Yes. Your children who are 6 and 8 years old. Yes. Against soldiers who have decades of combat experience. Yes. Non-lethal weapons. Standard capture the flag scenario. Your troops win. We leave quietly, and you never hear from us again. My kids win. She smiled. Then you start taking humanity seriously. Uxmoth's mandibles clattered. This is insane. Even for humans, this is insane. Mom, Kit said from the data terminal, can we use the level 6 arena? It has the rotating gravity wells. If the governor agrees, sweetheart. Those are for elite special forces training, Imlox protested. The difficulty rating is perfect, Kit interrupted. Anything less would be boring. Penny grabbed Violet's arm, pulling her aside. You're going to get your kids hurt. Or worse. I know you think humans are special, but they're children, actual children, against warriors who fought in real battles. Violet's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. Lieutenant, I appreciate your concern. Truly. But Kit and Tegan aren't like other children. They're 3rd-generation quiet service. They've been training since they could walk. And before you ask, no, that's not child abuse. It's survival. Out here, in the places we operate, being unprepared means being dead. This is wrong. This is necessary. The Union needs to understand what humanity can be when we're pushed. Better they learn now, in a controlled environment, than later when real fleets start arriving at Earth's doorstep. 20 minutes later, Penny stood in the observation gallery overlooking Training Arena 6, feeling like she was about to watch a disaster unfold in real time. Below, the arena sprawled across 500 meters of programmable environment. Variable gravity zones, destructible cover, holographic obstacles, the works. It was designed to simulate the most brutal combat scenarios in the galaxy. Kit and Tegan stood at the entry point, looking impossibly small. They'd changed into simple combat fatigues. Where they'd gotten those, Penny had no idea, and carried standard-issue training weapons. Non-lethal, but still capable of delivering painful, stunning charges. Across the arena, 10 Kolathi warriors prepared themselves. Elite troops. Veterans. Each one had seen combat that would give Penny nightmares for life. They wore full tactical armor, carried advanced weapons, and moved with the practiced efficiency of soldiers who'd turned killing into muscle memory. The squad leader was a veteran named Kulmthar, 43 years of service, decorated for valor in 6 major campaigns. He looked at the 2 human children and then up at the observation gallery where Uxmoth watched. His expression clearly said, "Are you serious right now?" Uxmoth activated the arena comm. "This is your final chance to withdraw. No one will think less of you." "They're kids," Kulmthar protested. "I'm not fighting children." "Then it'll be a short match," Kit called up cheerfully. "We'll try to be gentle." The arena's AI announced the parameters. Capture the flag scenario. Duration, 30 minutes. Victory conditions, retrieve opponent's flag and return it to starting position. Non-lethal force authorized. Begin in 10 seconds. Violet stood beside Penny in the gallery, utterly calm. Watch the environmental awareness. That's always the giveaway. The giveaway for what? For what happens when you teach humans to fight the way we evolved to fight. Not in formation, not following doctrine, just surviving. The countdown hit 0. The Kolathi squad immediately executed a textbook tactical advance. 3-point cover formation, overlapping fields of fire, communication protocols. They moved toward the center objective like a well-oiled machine of destruction. Kit and Tegan disappeared. Not literally. They'd moved into cover, but the speed was wrong. Children shouldn't move like that. Fluid, efficient. No wasted motion. The first indication something was wrong came when the arena's gravity well, a rotating zone of variable gravity meant to disorient combatants, suddenly shifted 30 degrees off its programmed rotation. Did they just hack the arena? Lixpun gasped from his monitoring station. No, Violet said. They redirected feedback from the gravity generators using the arena's own safety systems. It's not hacking if you're using equipment as designed, just creatively. 2 Kolathi warriors stumbled as gravity shifted under them. Not dangerous, just disorienting. Just enough. Kit appeared behind them, when had the child moved, and delivered 2 precise stun charges. Both warriors went down, not injured, just very surprised and very unconscious. Probability prediction, Violet narrated quietly. Kit calculated where they'd be after the gravity shift. It's pattern recognition. Humans are very, very good at pattern recognition. Tegan had climbed. Somehow, impossibly, the 6-year-old had scaled a vertical wall using handholds that didn't look like handholds and was now perched on top of a movable barrier. Mr. Patches tucked into a shoulder strap. A warrior spotted the child, raised his weapon. Tegan dropped Mr. Patches. The stuffed bear fell directly onto the warrior's helmet visor, blocking his view for exactly 2 seconds. 2 seconds during which Tegan dropped down, delivered a stunning charge, and was gone again before the next warrior could acquire targeting. Improvisation, Violet continued. Every toy is a tool. Every tool is a weapon. Every environment is an opportunity. The match continued. Should have continued. Should have been a learning experience for two overconfident children. Instead, it became a systematic dismantling of trained soldiers by what appeared to be two feral cats with opposable thumbs and tactical genius. Kit redirected steam vents to create visual cover. Tegan weaponized the arena's own defensive systems by triggering their automated responses in precise sequences. They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like things that had evolved hunting megafauna across ancient plains, using every advantage, exploiting every weakness, working together with coordination that looked almost telepathic. The veteran, Kulmthar, the warrior with 43 years of experience, found himself facing Kit alone. Everyone else was down, stunned, disoriented, or simply too impressed to continue. "You're good," he told the 8-year-old, weapon raised, "but you're out of tricks." Kit smiled. It was Violet's smile, too calm, too knowing. "Am I?" The child's weapon was empty. Everyone could see it on the diagnostic displays. No charge remaining. Kit threw it anyway, not at Kulmthar, at the gravity well generator. The weapon struck the exact point where the magnetic containment field intersected with the power coupling. The resulting feedback cascade caused a localized gravity fluctuation, not dangerous, just disorienting, and in that moment of distraction, Tegan dropped from above like a very small, very determined hawk. Stunning charge already firing. Kulmthar went down. 6 minutes. The entire match took 6 minutes. The arena went silent. Kit retrieved the enemy flag, walking calmly through the scattered Kolathi warriors who were beginning to regain consciousness. Tegan followed, carrying Mr. Patches and humming something that sounded suspiciously like a victory march. In the observation gallery, Uxmoth's mandibles had stopped clicking. Imalox was staring at the arena like he'd just witnessed a fundamental law of physics being casually violated. Lixpun had actually started laughing, the high-pitched sound of someone whose worldview had shattered and was now experiencing the freedom of having nothing left to lose. Penny looked at Violet. "What are you?" "Human," Violet said simply. "Just human. We're not stronger than other species, not faster, not smarter really, but we're adaptable, we're creative, we're stubborn. And when you threaten what we love," she nodded toward her children, now waving at the cameras, "we become something that the galaxy has never encountered before. We become inevitable." The data chip landed on Uxmoth's desk with a soft click. Violet placed it there gently, like someone leaving a gift. Invasion timelines, fleet positions, command structures, everything you need to stop what's coming for Earth. She smiled. "Consider it a gesture of goodwill. Partnership, Governor. That's what humanity's offering. Not servitude, not probationary membership. Partnership." Uxmoth stared at the chip, then at this ordinary woman who'd walked through his defenses like they were theater props. "And if we refuse? Then you'll explain to the galactic community how you let hostile fleets attack a Union member world, how you failed to protect billions of sentients because your pride couldn't handle admitting humans are more capable than you assumed." She headed toward the exit, her children following. "Choose wisely." Kit waved at the guards. "Thanks for the training. You're improving already." Tegan left a handwritten note for Lixipun, with 6 more impossible solutions. Later, watching the mudlark jump to light speed, Penny wondered how many others were out there. How many humans, operating in shadows, keeping Earth safe from threats it didn't know existed. The galaxy had spent millennia preparing for humanity's arrival. Turned out, humanity had been preparing too.